This is the Nassaumen Hockey Podcast with James Nichols and John Zella.
With a shot, Nelson, the tip, it was there, he scores! Kyle Palmieri, his first as an Islander.
At that first goal, but more importantly, just on their toes.
Oh, yeah. Kyle Palmieri already coming into the island and making a difference. Gotta love it, right?
I do. They came on in the second game, but we won't spoil anything up front. Definitely great to see him get the floodgates open with the Islanders, though.
Absolutely. Let's head immediately into On the Island, brought to you by DraftKings. Basketball season won't be around forever, so get in on all the action now with DraftKings, the leader in one-day fantasy sports. DraftKings is giving new players a free shot at millions of dollars in total cash prizes. Claim your free shot at $1 million in total prizes when using code THPN during signup. Feel the sweat like never before. Every dunk, steal, assist means so much more with a DraftKings daily fantasy lineup. With DraftKings, payday comes every day for the players. So what are you waiting for? Head to the app now. Download the DraftKings app now and use code THPN during signup. This week, DraftKings is putting you in the action with a free shot to win millions of dollars in total prizes. That's code THPN, and you can get a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes only at DraftKings. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for more details. All right, so let's talk about the three-game week that was last week. The New York Islanders played the Philadelphia Flyers. They win 3-2 in a shootout. Move on to play the New York Rangers the next night. Didn't show up. Really, not a great game. They lost
3 second periods in a row.
They did have 3 second periods in a row.
That was the entire game. It was hard to watch that.
Yeah, good way of putting it. But then they bounced back and they win a 3-2 game against the Rangers in a back-to-back at the Coliseum. Despite maybe not playing their best this week, they still came away with 4 out of 6 possible points, which is right now keeping them tied for first place with the Capitals. And let's talk a little bit about the Philly game. That was the first game Travis Zajac and Kyle Palmieri were inserted into the lineup. Immediately started on the third line with J.G. Pageau. It was a line of Palmieri, Pageau, and Zajac. What'd you think of that line? I mean, it was their first game, so they were getting acclimated, but it wasn't bad.
I think it was just to get them acclimated and not have it be too much of a shock to the system. Right. They're used to playing with each other at least a little bit. Pageau Pageau is a very straight line player, so probably easy to just kind of get their feet wet, and then just analyze from there. Trotz is pretty good about putting those lines together. Eventually, they kind of work out. It's tough because it's very questionable. Even Zajac now on the first line, you sit there and go, I mean, there's something that he knows that I don't. He is a future Hall of Fame coach with a Stanley Cup pedigree and 20 plus years in pro hockey. There's something he knows that I don't about how to construct lines. To me, it seems like you have Pageau and Wahlstrom as the scorers and Zajac. I think the big thing is the faceoffs. The other night,
winning the faceoffs.
So Zajac is on that first line to essentially be in the dot. I believe Barzal did not take a faceoff the other night, and
Correct.
That was the second time in his career out of 276 games that had occurred. So, and then Zajac continued to go 6 for 3 in the dot,
right?
Which was good because Barzal was below 50%. So now up the gut, they have a really, they did before. I think, especially with adding Pageau last year, they were just better up the middle. But now that they have 5 seriously serviceable centermen, they can have 2 at a time out on the ice without being too tired near the end of periods, end of games, OT, whatever. And even though Pageau is the face-off, get-off guy for the Islanders, it's good to have a guy like Zajac available. So that first game, they kind of play together. Getting their feet wet. Nice to see it kind of balance out. Great to see Wahlstrom back in the lineup. That was awesome.
Yeah, so
that line is really, really good.
Yeah.
That's definitely well, and we could talk about the second line in a little bit. But I would actually consider that to be the second line now. It's hard to imagine it any other way, even though the numbers are pretty irrelevant. They're way more dangerous.
Yeah, so it's a good point that you brought up Wallstrom getting back into the lineup, because the story of this week was, what was the lineup going to be, right? The two new guys come in, and it was like, where do they slot in, and who's going to sit? Well, the first game against Philadelphia, everyone was freaking out because come game time, who's still on the roster and not on the taxi squad? Leo Komarov. Who's on the taxi squad? Oliver Wallstrom. All hell breaks loose on Islanders Twitter. People are freaking out, and there's me trying to throw the pail of water that I have on a giant fire that won't go out, and everybody's like, what's going on? And I'm like, guys, this is probably injury related. The previous two games before the game in Philadelphia, or against Philadelphia the other night, Oliver Wallstrom went back to the locker room twice, in once in each game prior to the Philadelphia game. So he was dealing with a little bit of an ailment. Now, Barry Trotz did come out and say, listen, he was available for the game, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he had to play him. He just felt like maybe an extra day or two would, make it easier for Oliver Wallstrom to deal with whatever he's dealing with. Then comes the game against the Rangers, and he's still not in the lineup on what was that, Friday night? I think that was Friday night. Still not in the lineup. They wind up losing 4-1, and they just did not look like themselves. Now,
that's not because Wallstrom wasn't in the lineup.
Right. That's what I was just going to say. It's not because Wallstrom wasn't in the lineup. The one factor, though, that I will say that he definitely changes is the power play. It hasn't been good even when he's been in the lineup recently, but even against the Rangers in that game on Sunday, when he was back in the lineup, people or the opposing players were starting to lean towards his side of the ice. Suddenly he was on the power play, and all of a sudden they're scoring a power play goal again. I don't remember exactly if he was on the ice when Palmieri scored his first as an Islander, but you notice a little bit of a difference. Now, the Islanders power play has its own issues, and it's not solely on Wallstrom, but there is a difference when he's in the lineup, right? Like you said, that third line, which is probably considered the second line, is really good. Palmieri, Peugeot, and Wallstrom together, they were buzzing against the Rangers on Sunday.
They're straight line players. Wallstrom has done the nice little power move right through the triangle of the defenseman's, the stick in his leg or something. But Palmieri and Peugeot are particularly, that was a hard sentence, 3 P's in a row. They're very good at that. They're straight line players. They're confident. They're vets. So I think it complements Wallstrom, his raw talent, very well. Palmieri has a nose for the net. He wants to score goals. At Peugeot, Wallstrom, great vision. Wallstrom's a better passer than people give him credit for.
Oh yeah,
I've not seen enough people comment on that. Especially on the power play, his ability to bullet a pass through the seam. Now, I don't want to see it all the time, but when he's done it, it is crisp.
Right.
Bailey's getting it on that other half wall, and it's you hear the crack even on TV. So I think that's really important, and he wants to shoot the puck. So adding that kind of depth to that line, so Wallstrom's going to shoot. You know that Peugeot, when he's given the chance, can really wire it, and then you add Palmieri. Well, so it's the three of them together is just really good. I feel like I just repeated myself on accident, but you know what I mean. The three of them together is really, really good. So you don't know who to lean on that line. You're not sure as a defenseman who to lean to, because 2 out of 3 of them, all 3 can shoot and they have a nose for it, and 2 out of 3 are excellent passers, if not all 3. That kind of brings us to the second line, which has been all Beauvillier.
Yeah,
and Bailey's being Bailey. Nelson is a concern. I mean, he's still scoring goals. He's still leading the team in goals. So it's hard to really knock him. But outside of the goals, he's kind of invisible. I mean, I guess he's not playing bad defensively. I haven't seen any kind of huge lapses from him. But the little inside-outside toe drag, one-on-one plays, I would really just like to see him. I hate to be the Butch Goring here, but just get it deep. He's trying to make too many fancy hot dog plays instead of, and he's losing the puck.
Yeah.
So, you kind of saw it over these last 3 games as well, even with the new guys and things, things kind of compounded really quickly. And that led to it, giving up a point to Philadelphia, who I don't like how they've played against them. I'm glad that they're kind of on the bubble and they might not make it, because then you really have one team that you're worried about in Pittsburgh, that they don't have any opportunities to kind of show that they can win. They did shut them out once this season and all of that, but I like that, Philly might not make it, but they still need to kind of take care of business the rest of the month with them. I think they're still playing twice more. So, things to figure out. How do you feel? So we can talk about the second line. So comment on that first, and then Martin on the power play before I forget.
Okay. Yeah.
Before I comment on that, I'll throw both of those things your way.
So the second line has been not themselves, right? We expected a major step forward, or at least maintaining what they did in the playoffs last season. Beauvillier has been the best player on that line, but at the same time, he scores in bunches and then he's gone. Like, you can't find him. Nelson was more of a consistent player in more recent history, but at the beginning of his career, he was known to kind of do the same thing. He would score in bunches and then fall off. And then in, again, recent history, Josh Bailey was a dependable player. He would
defensively, you almost can't go wrong with him.
Right.
Obviously he's trusted by the team. I'll let you finish. Go ahead.
So my point here is, now the scripts have flipped to, for Nelson and Beauvillier, what they used to be, just, scoring in bunches and then disappearing. Add on the fact that Nelson's been kind of a liability in his defensive end. But nobody's been worse than Josh Bailey, in my opinion. And I'm not one of those Bailey haters. I love Josh Bailey and I love what he brings to the team. He just hasn't brought it this year. I've noticed on most occasions, most of his shifts, he's not moving his feet. He's making lazy plays. He's trying to chip and chase the puck. And he's, I don't know, maybe if he just lost a step in the offseason and he can't make those plays anymore and he's just trying to figure out a new style of game to play. But it's not working for him, whatever it is he's trying to do. He's become a liability in his own end. And he's causing a lot of turnovers and he's not really contributing the way he should. Does he every so often come in with a timely goal or a timely assist that you're like, well, there's Josh Bailey again.
Right.
It does. It happens. He shows the flashes of offensive ability that he does have, that he does possess, but it's not consistent enough to be like, okay, he's good. He's solidified on that second line. We talk a lot about how the Islanders have basically 3 second lines. Maybe it's time for him to take a dip in time on ice. Maybe it's time for him to, or promote the third line of Palmieri, Peugeot, and Wahlstrom, and demote Nelson, Beauvillier, and Bailey, and see what that, decrease in time on ice does for them. Maybe it'll help keep them more fresh and more raring to go every shift. Who knows? Now, Martin on the power play, what can I say? He's been great.
You think so?
I do. I think he's been, listen, he's been great because he knows his job and he's doing it, right? He's not trying to do anything crazy. He's not trying to snipe, right? He's just parking himself in front of the goaltender and he's trying to, score a dirty goal. Now, every once in a while, you get a diamond in a rough play by him, and he does that between the legs, blind pass to Beauvillier, and he scores a beautiful goal. And it's like, okay, Matt Martin knows what he's doing, but he doesn't really know what he's doing. It's not his role. I think that Trotz just put him out there and said, "Listen, try to do this," and he's trying to do it. I think he's been serviceable.
The Islanders have such a good top 6 at this point, at top 9. I don't see why it's necessary to have him there just from that perspective. I understand
now it's not.
Even
they got Palmieri, they don't need him there anymore.
Right, but he's still there. And yes, he's been, I guess in the last counting the playoffs in this season, he's done really well offensively. These have 10 goals altogether. That's really tough, to take him off of a power play. I mean, that's not any kind of crazy numbers. Maybe it's not that tough, but so I saw a stat the other night, and this is kind of right before the game, and this is right before Palmieri's goal actually, and it was DJ Bodega Cat. I don't really know this person's actual name, but they're a writer, whatever. And anyway, they between her and Thomas Drance of I want to say The Athletic. They were kind of going back and forth. Friedman was in there, and she had mentioned teams in power play formations with a net front presence have a 4% lower conversion rate than teams without one. Following that, so the second power play unit with Palmieri goes out. He's the bumper instead of the net front, and they score. And we've talked about that on here, where the bumper position is actually really important. You need a quarterback, you need a trigger guy, you need a bumper.
Yeah.
And you want to be able to have two trigger guys. That's why Bailey, I don't know why Bailey's the left-hand shot. I think that could very easily be Beauvillier or something like that. I don't know why it needs to be Bailey. But that's I favorited that, and then Palmieri scored. Like, it was nuts how quick that I was like, oh, that's interesting. Thinking about Martin in front of the net and like, all right. So Lee, instead of trying to fix, okay, Lee's not here, let's try to plug this hole. I'm not a Stanley Cup winning coach. I'm not an NHL coach. I'm not even a coach of a mite team, but I don't know what the thought process is behind. Let's just try to replace what we've done. And it wasn't really that good to begin with. Well, Lee was scoring goals at 5-on-5 with that kind of approach, just kind of cleaning it up. But he kind of went from in front of the net to the bumper spot. Like, he was in that slot area and finding success. I don't like trying to shoehorn a different player that's like, okay, he's a big body, so that equals Anders Lee, even though he doesn't quite have the same hands. Just do something different. Like, they're good enough coaches on behind the bench to just simply re-strategize. Yeah. Especially when you get a bunch of new players. I don't like Zajac seemed to be doing the same thing. He was just standing in front of the net, even at 5-on-5. And I'm like, I know you want to get a screen or something, but don't try to just do what Anders Lee did. Try to do something like re-strategize. It doesn't seem like it's that hard to do. You're a future Hall of Fame coach. Let's figure it out. Maybe that's the plan, right? Maybe that's the plan is to try to get a new look on the power play with Palmieri and Zajac here. It just seems like he's, meaning Trotz is just easing them into transition on a new team. Got to figure out, their roles, where they stand in the lineup, including special teams. So I would say give it this week. We'll talk about this again next week. If nothing has changed on the power play, there's no reason why Matt Martin can't come off the power play, right? Yeah, I agree with you there. They just have so much firepower on. I'm not talking about like put Wahlstrom on the first unit. That unit is large. Like aside from Bailey, I forget who's even on the first unit because they have a defenseman. Yeah, they have Pulak, they have Barzal, they have Eberle. That's 3. Then they have Martin in front of the net. And then is it Beauvillier?
It's Bailey.
On the first unit is Bailey.
On the first unit, yeah.
So that's that's the question right there, right? So I don't understand. So there's a Martin at the very least. You can turn into Zajac. If you want somebody in the high slot. Or Beauvillier on the half wall in Bailey's position. At least stick Bailey on the second unit. Yeah, right. You have Palmieri as that bumper spot, and Wahlstrom on the other side. And is it Dobson or Letty quarterbacking? I feel like there's some different looks. They have enough. Right. So there's Nelson on that second unit too. Like, they have enough players where they don't need to do it, and they can kind of flip some players around. Like, I don't know why you don't have a top heavy first power play. Right. So that you don't see Toronto like splitting up. You have your top guys being your top guys. Right.
And I think before the problem was that they didn't have enough firepower, but now maybe they have enough firepower. That the problem was that, Andrews Lee's not a sniper. Kyle Palmieri is a little bit of, he could snipe a little bit. He also does,
his hands. You want him in the high slot.
Right, exactly. So the difference here is the type of player that we have now in Palmieri. He can snipe a little bit. He also scores those dirty goals. He'll get in front of the net and get a little dirty there too. But that's not primarily his skill set, and he's more of the shooter. So maybe now, like I said, Trotz was just trying to get these guys acclimated. We're now in a 3-day period where they're doing nothing but practicing, right? There's 3 days off.
Yeah, so they probably had today off.
They probably did have today off.
And then the next 2 days they'll...
Right, so Tuesday and Wednesday, you'd hope to see, and we're not going to know until Thursday when they play again, you hope to see a different power play unit roll out where Palmieri maybe sets up in the Oliver Wahlstrom spot, and
I don't mind him. I like Wahlstrom in his spot. I want him being that trigger guy.
Yeah. But I think on both
the
units.
Bumper. I like the bumper spot to a Palmieri or a Beauvillier or a Nelson. Right, those three players to me
that too
are really great. So yeah, fine. Bailey's a good passer. Leave him on the half wall. Whatever. It's not. You're not going through Bailey on most of those goals anyway. You're probably going to go through Wahlstrom. So that's fine. Maybe the first unit needs to get settled, and you replace, if Zajac kind of settles in, kind of keep that first line together as your first power play unit and go from there. I don't even, then it's just trying to figure out who's out on their half wall. But
right. So I don't want to do too much of a deep dive on the power play yet, because I think this is more of a topic for next week, and we'll definitely talk about it because we're going to see hopefully some changes this week, right? Palmieri's there.
Yeah.
Zajac is there. There are now options where, listen, we love Matt Martin, but he doesn't have to be on the power play despite, being serviceable and doing his job. It's just they're not working as a whole, and they need a little bit of a new look. So this is more of a next week topic, in my opinion.
Yeah. Before we move on from the second line issue.
Now that's an issue.
Yeah. I think Beauvillier is still skating really well.
He had a pretty bad game last game.
Yeah,
he caused some pretty bad turnovers, made some pretty bad decisions with the puck. I wasn't too pleased with his game.
Yeah, I tried to the line as a whole just isn't clicking, and I guess that's fine to a degree when you think about each line kind of has their moment. Like they each kind of step up and do their thing. It just hasn't been them for a while.
Yeah,
and that's that's a big problem for me. Like I want to see them step up aside from Nelson's, a goal every other game on the power play.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing them just play well. I think that's the problem is they're not just not scoring. It's like the team can lose 3 straight and be like, man, they're doing everything right.
Right.
They're scoring on the power play. They're getting their chances. It's just, they're not getting the bounces. You can almost deal with that. They're not getting the chances. The flow isn't there. You have Beauvillier pretty much just being the motor on that line with the speed and not a whole lot else. And that's what worries me the most. It's not like, oh man, they're just like hitting the post and that was really the story that Ranger game, right? 3 posts, the 4-1 loss. They played like crap, but they still hit 3 posts.
Yeah.
And that's one of those, like, look, they didn't play well, but they got some chances. There was a few bounces here and, fine. That one weird one off the knob of Sorokin's stick. It's a couple things here and there, and it's the hockey game and whatever, right?
Yeah.
They're not even, you can't chalk a whole lot up to them, even for like, the hockey gods. You can't even make it up. And that's a little bit of my problem. They're just not playing well.
So
and it's a good thing that that third line, even before the trade, because this has been going on, right? Like this has been an issue.
Yeah.
The pressure is off of them, and maybe that helps, right? Maybe just enough pressure is taken off. The entire lineup gets pretty equal playing time. There's a few guys that get so I kind of see your point, but to keep everyone fresh, to just do that Trotz thing where they roll the lines, I'm not sure they do. I'm not sure he does that. So I'm not sure he tries to like take them off the ice.
The thing with the second line is I think each of those players one is having a worse season than the next, right?
Yeah.
Bailey's the worst. Nelson's the second worst. And Beauvillier's having probably the best season out of the 3 of them.
Well, it's tough. Nelson's leading the team. And
he's leading the team in goals, right? But the thing is, that's all he's doing is scoring some goals And then it's like literally everything else he's doing is just not that great. Although he has been good in the faceoff circle, he does win the majority of those draws. But he wins draws, he scores goals, and then everything else that happens, if he's not scoring, it's like, Jesus, what are you doing? Like, stop. Maybe you're gripping the stick too tight.
He's trying to do too much with the puck.
Well, and that's the thing, right? They're each maybe trying to do too much because they're trying to make up in compensation for the next player. They're each not having a good season this season. I don't know if, maybe they could figure it out. And like I said, I mean, regardless of having 3 second lines, when you do at the end of the night look at the score sheet, the first line does get more minutes than the second line. The second line does get more minutes than the third line. Maybe not by a marginal difference, but a couple of minutes here and there. Maybe that helps make a difference.
Some power play time,
right? That's and
that'll kind of even out
as
we go. Now that third line is beginning to kind of get a little confidence, and it's just a good line. It's just a better line. I mean,
it is.
Palmieri is better than Bailey. That you can't. I don't know that it starts and ends there. I mean, it's hard to say that Wahlstrom is better than either Nelson or Pajot. He's just a very different player than Nelson.
Yeah,
so it's hard to say better. He's better in the dot, and he's certainly not as successful scoring goals, but that's not really his role on the team. On that line is Wahlstrom and now Palmieri are the goal scorers. I'd say Beauvillier and Palmieri are close. I like the configurations. I just want them to figure it out. They're capable of it. Like they didn't just lose their luster. Bailey's whatever. And I don't even want to debate now on future podcasts, even on the expansion. I won't be right. I don't want to write about it. Did the Islanders make a deal for Bailey to go to Seattle or because I got to tell you the truth. As much as I think a lot of people listening, I think between the two of us that we all want that to happen. I don't see it. I don't see it because I think not because I don't see it because I don't want it to happen, but Trotz doesn't want it to happen.
I don't think I want it to happen either. I don't know what is going to happen with the Seattle expansion draft, but I personally believe that Bailey, by the end of his career, will be retiring as an Islander.
That's a huge part of it. And in addition, because my first thought, because I was, I don't want to like dive into this as you kind of said earlier with another topic. Like a lot of people are, and I think you've even said this, like we would really like to see Palmieri resign. Yes. I think one of the only ways to see that happen is if someone like now Ladd can go somehow, or Komarov can go, or a combination, or whatever, a combination of about $4 million, right? Somewhere. Or the other option is Bailey. And I was like, Bailey that really clears it up, right? You throw 4.5 or 5 at Palmieri and you call it a day and you lose Bailey and that's fine. But I just don't see it. And it's almost not worth talking about because I feel like he probably wants to retire an Islander. The Islanders probably want him to do that. I don't see unless they're doing crazy stuff. Lou likes the core. Trotz likes the core. They're adding to it. They're not going to subtract anybody major. Right. Somebody said Zajac was a replacement. Maybe you can get him cheap
for Zajac. Yeah.
And I was like, what? Zajac is a replacement for Zajac. You keep the guy.
Yeah.
Zajac is not coming back. Not for any.
Well, I'll say this. Lamoriello in a media scrum today did say that they haven't ruled out the possibility of bringing the guys that they traded for back after the offseason. He alluded to it. It was pretty
I think it's definitely possible. They can they got to move some stuff, and he's gotten creative. He did it this year, and that's I guess a good segue. What we've seen a lot of is these 3-team trades where a random team is pretty much buying a second, third, fourth round pick for half the salary of some player they're not ever going to have on their roster for the remainder of the season. How do you feel about that?
I mean, it's smart management. You got guys like, Steve Yzerman pulling out these crazy trades with 3-team deals, and it's good for the GMs who can figure it out. If I'm a fan of a team who figures out how to get rid of that contract, I'm ecstatic, right? There's nothing more that I want for this team than for them to move on from this Andrew Ladd contract. And if Lamoriello could have figured out a way for one team to take Ladd's contract and then another team to take that contract, half of that contract in a separate trade, I would have been like, that was the smartest thing they could have done.
Well, I was seeing a lot of I forget, is it Nick Foligno with Toronto, where Toronto's essentially not paying him because
I think
it's two other teams, and that's not even the first time that it happened in the last. There's at least one or two other instances of this.
I think it's smart.
I think it's smart. I don't like how I frankly do not understand why the cap needs to be. I understand it's revenue and certain teams can't afford and blah blah. This particular season, the taxi squad, yeah,
there it is.
The taxi squad situation in regard to the cap annoys the shit out of me. Like I straight up do not understand why that needed to be part of that. Just have them be they don't need to be part of it. Not their AHL salary, not their NHL salary. Just that's it. Just leave it off. It's unprecedented year. Just like make their lives like a little bit easier. But of course the NHL just like, yeah, no chaos, predictability, nothing is more, and whatever. So you're seeing, these GMs get creative with it, and you can, this is very along the same lines as the Kucherov thing, right? Well, he's magically going to be better right in time for the playoffs. Freddie Anderson too, right? With Toronto, they're gonna put him on LTIR. He's gonna magically get better. They save all this money. They're able to get some insurance for Jack Campbell and for Freddie Anderson and David Rittich, and pick up all these guys and circumvent. It's a little crazy, but yeah, you're right. It's smart in a year, and in the next few years where it'll be a flat cap.
Yeah,
you're going to see these things. I think it eventually. Kind of has to stop. I think the expansion draft will help some teams, and just getting a good player off your roster, even if you didn't want to lose them. Say the Islanders really did want to keep Bailey, $5.5 million off your books is the worst thing in this era, right? You can, it kind of opens you up to some things, and they have their work cut out for them for sure. But it's still not, losing somebody like that wouldn't be the end of the world, just for the dollars and cents of it all. So yeah, I think it's pretty smart.
Yeah, I think it's really smart management. And, if, again, like I said, Lamoriello could have pulled something like that off for an Andrew Ladd, I would have been ecstatic. Now, come at the end of this season, I think there's 2 years left on this Ladd contract. So it's not any longer super unforeseeable for Lamoriello to move that contract. And I know teams like Chicago openly stated that they were willing to absorb contracts that had term, that to keep themselves at a certain number that they desired to be at. So, maybe this offseason something does end up happening with that Ladd contract. We'll see, but it might have to take one of these 3-team trades that did go down this deadline.
I don't think they have the assets for that for Ladd, but I could be wrong. I've been very wrong those last few weeks, and I don't like speculating anymore. But
listen, to be honest,
it doesn't seem likely just for the fact of like who's got the cash or anything.
To be honest, I didn't foresee Palmieri and Zajac coming to the Islanders. It just seems like Lamoriello always figures out a way to do something that we're not thinking about. And although we're all thinking about moving Andrew Ladd, I wouldn't put it past him to find a way to get that contract out of the Long Island for whatever he does it for. And we're all like, wow, we didn't think of that. That's pretty great that he was able to do it. So I just wouldn't put it past him. He's just proven to make these kinds of deals where you're like, oh, wow, that's good for us.
Yeah, you could be right. There's definitely going to be some interesting things this off season.
Yeah.
So and you know what I saw There was a deal for somebody that went through today, and it was a comparable for Bavilier. And I can't.
Alex Iafallo with the
Was it that?
with the Los Angeles Kings. Yeah, he got 4x4. He extended with them, and a lot of people are saying that that's a comparable for Anthony Bavilier. Maybe a little bit less. You might see 3x3.5, maybe even 3x3 for him, and I think that's a reasonable number for him. Just because I love the player. I still think he's trying to figure out a few things, find a little consistency, and I think a 3x3 number would be very fair for him, especially in this salary cap that's not going up. So
Yeah, he's making 2.1. So yeah, 3.5, 3x3.5, or 4x4, something like that. I wouldn't mind. And then you just hope that Zajac kind of takes a little bit of a haircut and sticks around at like $1.5 million or $2 million or something, just to be
I don't want
to
dive into the offseason.
Yeah, sorry, I don't want.
The trade deadline just passed, but you have to think that because they brought back Martin, there is a plan in place to make sure Zajac stays as well. We'll see what happens. But something I did want to talk about was not only did the Islanders acquire Palmieri and acquire Travis Zajac, but they also last night or Sunday night acquired Braden Coburn from the Ottawa Senators for a 7th-round pick in 2022. Not worried at all about that 7th-round pick in 2022. No. But I love,
it's like Pavel Datsyuk, we're fine.
Yeah, I love this deal. This is a great deal. He just won the Stanley Cup with the Lightning last season, and he has 137 games of playoff experience. He's like 6'5". He's a monster. So as a seventh defenseman, this was a great deal. Perfect for depth. He definitely slots in as a 7th defenseman over Hickey and Aho. He's not going to be an every night player, but I'll take.
He only played 3 games in the playoffs last year. I was wondering if I had heard his name during the Islanders series. I can't remember, but he's a big guy,
right?
And I don't know who I don't know what he's a perfect fit to replace. I think it has more to do with who they're playing. Like if they're playing, I don't know. Maybe Green doesn't play every single game in the series, or Dobson or something like that. They need a little more weight back there.
Yeah.
If they do play the Flyers, he's probably not somebody too bad. The weight to kind of play against their top players. I don't know. I doubt he sees a game. Chances are he never wears an Islander jersey outside of warm-ups or warm-ups / practice. But you want to see Dobson kind of thrive. You want to see Green kind of do his thing in the playoffs. He's still really good. He scored his first regular season goal as an Islander recently.
Yeah.
I think in the 4-1 loss against the Rangers. And so I agree. It's a good move. It's safe. I don't think it necessarily speaks to that they didn't trust Hickey, because he's a very different player.
And I just think you can't have enough depth, right? I had people tweeting at me about this. I don't understand. Hickey was great, but you see how fast things could fall apart. Guys,
you lose 2 guys.
So
it's
quick.
super, super easy to just like
every single time Adam Pelech blocks a shot, everyone's holding their breath. So you can never have enough depth. He's a different kind of 7th defenseman than Thomas Hickey, right? Thomas Hickey's kind of like a two-way player. Braden Coburn's probably going to be more of the Scott Mayfield type. He's going to use the body. He's going to try to push you out in front of the net, and he's going to try and shut you down
on that pairing.
Right. So I think that's more of what the train of thought was. They needed a replacement for a defensive defenseman, and they got one in Coburn. They have a guy in Thomas Hickey who, if a guy like Noah Dobson goes down, Thomas Hickey can step into the lineup and maybe bring a little bit of both the offense and the defensive side. So
but before we move too far past like trade deadline and all those other things, I think it's important to also recognize that there's also guys, Dal Cole will come back, Komarov is still around, Johnston is still around,
right?
Handsome Tom Kuhnhackl will come up eventually.
The rosters expand very soon.
Rosters expand. So Zarnik is still available.
Yep.
I don't know if Bellows really has a shot, as far as, finding a way. I don't really know where he slots in, but he's still available. So there's a lot of depth all of a sudden. Even if, if Anders Lee was around, they probably still at least make the Palmieri trade, but maybe Zajac isn't part of it. But
Correct.
Yeah, there's a lot of depth, and there's a lot of like, all right, if Zajac's not getting it done, who can kind of go there? Can Palmieri go up to the first line and you fill in the third line gap? Like or Bailey's not cutting it or whatever the case is. Like there's a couple here and there that you can see like, okay, who can slot in? And yeah, I mean, someone even tweeted even Andrew Ladd is available. Like it's just like he is so far down the depth chart, and it's great to see. Like
Yes,
he again not gonna see the playoffs with the Islanders unless something crazy happens on like last year. He's not going to get that shot.
No,
he's not even going to get that shot because there's so many other players.
And that's what they need. If they want to go on this deep run, this Stanley Cup run, like they talk about and they think they can do, they're going to need this depth. So you don't blink an eye at the first round pick they gave up for Palmieri and Zajac. You don't blink an eye at the 7th round pick they gave up for Coburn. It's a great deal. Both deals, great deals, in my opinion. Which leads me to the question: let's give this trade deadline a grade, high school style, A through F. What do you give Lou Lamoriello this trade deadline?
I don't want to be one of those. You're a teacher, so I don't know, maybe you're not like this, but I don't know if I want to be like A, which I think I gave in the grade for the Owls blog. I think I just gave it a straight A. But to be a little more picky, I don't know what I would have wanted him to do different. I honestly have no idea. He did what they needed to do. I like that. I like the reason he did it, which was they proved to me they could do it without Lee, and they earned it. So I like that. He's obviously paying attention. I want to say A minus. Again, I don't know what changes that from an A minus to an A for me. I don't. It's not like a Coburn is somebody else, and that's better. I'm not sure what you could have done. If they sign Palmieri, it goes from an A minus to an A for me. Like if he walks anyway, and the Islanders go to the conference final again, I'm happy with 2 conference finals in a row, right? That builds momentum. It's good for these guys. This core gets another kind of crack at it. Dobson gets that experience all playoffs long, blah, blah, blah. It's good for the team. Sorokin gets that experience, prolonged playoff run 2 years in a row. I think it's good. So maybe that's the difference. Like the Pajot thing, that was a fantastic deal to begin with.
Yeah, that was an A plus.
And that was that was an A plus. That was an A plus, right? So maybe that A minus to an A for me, NHP on the podcast versus the blog, is if he signs. What do you think?
I was gonna go with A minus as well. That was kind of where I was at with the total grade. He filled every need, right? Palmieri was the guy that they needed to score. Zajac's the depth they needed to make the run, and Coburn is the same depth on the blue line that they needed. I think in order to make it like an A plus for me, and we could start talking about some of the deals that went down within the East Division. I really like what Washington did, man. Getting a guy like Anthony Mantha.
He's been your guy for a while.
He's been my guy for a while. I like him a lot. He's very good. He's an offensive driver. He's good in his own end. He's just been on a really bad team. And, people, again, I gave my opinion on Twitter about what I thought about this trade. And I was like, Anthony Mantha is a game changer. In my opinion, he's a game changer. He's going to score, especially with the option to have Kuznetsov or Backstrom at his, to his right playing left wing. He's going to score 30 or more goals there, next season.
They'll rack up.
And for many seasons. Does he have term? He's got 3 years left on he's just signed a 4-year deal. This is the first year of his 4-year deal in Detroit. So they gave up a lot, right? They gave Jacob Vrana, who's a former 30 goal scorer. They gave up Richard Panik, a 1st-round pick and a 2nd-round pick next season. I don't think, though, that they come away with a loss here, because although Vrana is very good, I think Mantha's better, right? Vrana.
I saw mixed feelings about Vrana.
I have mixed feelings. Listen, I
saw Caps fans kind of like, yeah, all right, get him out of here. You get a guy with term. It's that 1st-round pick. You got a guy right now.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? And he's young enough. He's only 27. He's a former 30 goal scorer who I do anticipate returning to that 30 goal caliber pretty consistently now with, the team that he's on.
20 plus easy. But yeah,
right, 20 plus easy. He's really good. He's a really good player. And I think if Lamoriello, for argument's sake, sent Beauvillier a first-round pick, Dal Cole, and a second-round pick next year for Mantha, I don't know if I would have been that upset about it.
That's a huge.
It's a big deal. But I don't know. Here's the thing: you get your term.
Beauvillier is way younger.
He's 4 years younger, and you get your term though, and you don't have to worry about re-signing somebody next year, and you get a reasonable contract
by
that you
31.
Can work with.
He's tailing off, and then Beauvillier is still doing his thing, and the first round pick. I don't know. That's rich for me.
Well, who's the Verona on the Islanders that you could have moved?
I mean, I think the issue is that there's no prospects for the Islanders to move. That
Verana's not a prospect. Verana's
what I mean is like you couldn't
player.
even. I'm not even a roster. If Detroit was looking for a roster player, you're right. What I'm saying is just to make a deal for deal's sake. The Islanders prospects aren't as don't have the same pedigree around the league that within the Islanders community and in the organization. So even though Bells is like on the fringe for the Islanders, that means that around the league, you might not have that same kind of attraction.
No.
So even Bells in a first or something like that, it might not work. If they wanted a roster player, I don't know who you send. Maybe you don't make that deal.
Yeah.
At 27, that's like the same kind of conversation. A little bit different than a guy like Hall last year, right? He's just old enough where I'm like, yeah, leave it. I'll keep Beauvillier. Right. I'd rather than make these moves, get Palmieri for a little cheap, a little less term. He's 29, 30 years old, Smithtown guy. I'll take him for 2 or 3 more years on the third line. Absolutely. 100%. I don't know if I want to, prove me wrong, man. Though he's watching. Light the.
I think he's going to line it up with Washington. I think he's going to be really successful there. I don't want him to be, but I think he's going to be. I think that's
as long as it's not against the Islanders, I don't care what he does. But
yeah, but I think that's a problem
in this playoff run. Yeah, I think the road goes through the Islanders and the Caps out of the East Division.
Oh, absolutely.
And the Islanders have shown they could beat the Caps. Pretty well. I mean, the 1-0 game wasn't exactly Monday or Tuesday, wasn't exactly what the score indicated. They played really well.
Yeah.
Even with a guy like Chara, who, makes a huge difference. He got walked a little bit, turnstile by Barzal, but even still, he's still a force back there.
Yeah.
And so even with that, they managed to kind of turn that series around a little bit and win those games. Yeah, it changes the dynamic a little bit. I'm sure the power play gets a little bit of a boost. Islanders need to find a way to not have Matt Martin take 2 minor penalties in a game. So that's probably step one. But either way, you're going to get a call against eventually. But yeah, I mean the Islanders are all they had Zajac and Palmieri. They had Mantha,
which I love. Don't get me wrong. I love the deals.
Sorry, I'm just mean like they go head to head, right? And you're going to see it later this month. They go head to head, and that'll be a good indication. But I think both teams get better. The Islanders have better defense. The Islanders have better goaltending by quite a bit.
Oh, by far, yeah.
So, as long as you can kind of contain,
I think they'll weather that storm.
I think they're capable of doing it. We'll see if they do it.
Yeah.
So Mantha, yeah, I think he moves the needle for sure. I think that's a good move. Quite the deal to be made.
It's a big deal. It is.
Yeah, and then Boston gets better.
So let's talk about the full trades that went down. Washington acquires Anthony Mantha from Detroit, and they give up Jacob Vrana, Richard Panik, and the picks like we said. But they also acquire Michael Raffle from Philadelphia, and they give up a 2021 5th-round pick to Philadelphia. So they're bolstering the offense a little bit. They're trying to get something going. I think maybe they've hit a bit of a dry spell, regardless of still being in first place. They're squeaking out low scoring wins. I think they want to score a little more. No, he's not. He's a former 30 goal scorer.
Yeah, and he's is he like kind of like he's like a power forward-y type
Yeah.
thing? Maybe not.
I don't know if he was in the lineup every night for Philly. I think they were trying to go with more of a youth kind of thing going on with aside from JVR, Giroux, and Voracek, but they have the kids like Farabee. They just re-signed Scott Lawton to a 5-year, $3 million deal, but they got rid of Raffle. And Washington, like I said, is trying to bolster their offense a little bit. The other big trade in this division was Taylor Hall and Curtis Lazar to Boston for Anders Bjork and a 21 or 22 second round pick from the Bruins, which I thought was an okay trade for Buffalo.
They're gonna pick a washing machine. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I think actually Buffalo got fleeced this trade deadline. So I Boston fans, I mean Buffalo fans, I feel really bad for you because you didn't acquire one first round pick this trade deadline. Nick Foligno goes for a first round pick.
How are you gonna sell Hall? Like I said, you got to start with a first round pick. I get it.
They've been talking about moving Rasmus Ristolainen for so long. He's a good defenseman. So
his underlying numbers, I don't think are that great. The only thing they have is a goalie, and now there's they obviously didn't sell, and there was rumors to Toronto or whatever for quite a while. He has somehow a winning record.
Yeah,
maybe not still, but from even a few days ago, he had a winning record. It was 7-5-3. Yeah, they're in a tough spot. Who else? What was the other trade? So they got they trade Hall, and there was another deal that went out. Oh, Stahl
was to Montreal. Yeah, they full sold, and they probably should have sold a little more.
There's nothing to sell. Even the fact that those two guys went, and for what they went for, they had to just get something. They would be an enormous laughingstock if they kept really just Hall. And then they're worried about, Jack Eichel could go somewhere in this offseason.
Yeah.
That's still a possibility. I can't, there's these gifs of the Pulp, John Travolta from Pulp Fiction in the White Room walking around. It's like Jack Eichel again. Like every 2 years, he's just on an island. I don't know how you keep your head. And he's been pretty vocal as any hockey player is anyway, about his feelings about Buffalo.
Yeah, he doesn't want to lose anymore. He keeps talking about it.
And you can't, I don't know. I will say this about the Hall deal. Obviously it's good for Boston.
Yeah.
It really kind of it makes it difficult to line match against them now. They have that, the perfection line, and then they add Hall to really any decent center. And that's
Krejci.
And Krejci. So there you go. So then it's really hard. It's a little harder to line match. You have to have, if you're the Islanders later this week, you have to make sure that whatever line is up against them, if that's the second line, which I suspect it may be because of the defensive part, and the fourth line is against the perfection line, at least a little bit. The other lines are going to have to score some goals. And they're those defensive lines, that second line has an opportunity. If you're not going to score goals, you better stop them from coming.
Yeah. So the thing with Boston is that they were first line or bust as far as scoring, and even the first line is kind of going through a bit of a rough patch right now where they're not scoring either. So This was a pure need for offense. To be honest, I feel like they should have probably acquired a defenseman. Grzelcyk's hurt. I don't know how much longer he's hurt for, but really it's just McAvoy there. And when Grzelcyk's not in the lineup, they're really lacking defense there. And, Halak's hurt, Rask is hurt. Now they have
the goalie problem. Oh my God.
Now Vladar and Sweeney have actually been pretty good to fill in.
Yeah, I mean, one of them just had their NHL debut. He won, which is
Sweeney.
Great.
But you want to carry that into the playoffs?
I mean, if you're the only saving grace, the only saving grace that they have is that they have 2 games in hand on the Rangers.
Yeah.
And they have 4 points ahead.
Yeah.
So I guess that's good, but Yeah, you don't want to do that. I just regarding Hall. How do you feel about how he's handled all of this?
It's
I
interesting
have
because
feelings.
there's been so much talk of, oh, he's a cancer, he's not good for a locker room, this, that, and the other thing. I don't know, man. I think he's just trying to find where he belongs, and he just doesn't know yet. I feel like he's just like he's a little kid, doesn't know where to go, and he keeps getting shuffled around, and everybody's like, oh, he's the Matt Duchene, he's causing all these problems. I don't know if it's him or if he's just got an unlucky streak of where he's landed. That's how I feel personally about his career thus far. He was drafted to Edmonton, and then he went to the Coyotes after the Devils, and then he went to the Sabres, and yeah, he did. He was the MVP with the Devils, but that team wasn't very good. He pretty much did it all himself that season. And then for the rest of the teams he was on, they were bottom of the barrel teams. They weren't great.
Some of them for sure. I think he wasn't great with the Coyotes.
Right.
He was on some decent Edmonton teams, not great.
Yeah.
I think a couple things. Newsflash to Taylor Hall. I know he's not listening, but newsflash to Taylor Hall. You're the friggin' guy. You're the guy that make it better.
Yeah.
Just so in case he didn't know, he's the guy. And
maybe he's not anymore, though. Maybe his confidence is so shaken that it's not him anymore.
That very well may be true, right? The other thing is, and Emily Kaplan of ESPN tweeted this. How unusual has Taylor Hall's path been since winning the league MVP? He joins Jaromir Jagr and Sergei Fedorov as the only players to play a game for multiple teams in multiple seasons after winning the Hart Trophy. Hall is the first to do it in consecutive years. Wow. So that's number two. The third thing is he wants to win, right? That's his goal in the offseason. Now, I think what he did was he wanted more money and he wanted to win. Everyone balked, especially with the expansion draft coming up, the salary cap being flat, and Buffalo is the only one that was left calling.
Yeah, you're right because he did say in an interview, I don't remember who the interview was with, but upon getting traded, he said his first choice in the offseason was Boston.
Right. So
things went a different direction. He went to Buffalo.
So instead of wanting to win, which is clearly bullshit, then he puts the team that spent the money on him and invested, essentially knowing that they were going to be absolute horseshit and have to trade him. And then he goes, and then he handcuffs that team. Even, who's the GM in Buffalo? Kevin Adams. He says, he was asked, was Boston pretty much it? Like, that was it? That's all he was going to, that's only place Hall was going to go to? And he said, yeah, pretty much. I'm so happy on a few levels, right? He's not very good, right? I just plain and simple. Someone's got to score goals in Buffalo, and it wasn't even freaking him. It was Olsen, right? Jesus, right? Like, you got to be the guy. You're the $8 million player. You don't have a night off.
Yeah.
You can still score. Look at Ziggy Palffy, right? Still scored 40, 45 goals a season, right? Somebody's got to score. It was him. He's unbelievable, right? You can't even be that guy. Handcuffs him. I'm so happy he's on the Islanders. So happy.
Yeah.
The Islanders, whether a trade fell through, like you said, the cancer, that absolute nonsense that he brings to the table. Don't want him anywhere near the island.
So the good thing here is,
I know it's like a little bit of a rant. I'm just so happy it's Palmieri.
No,
on a few levels, right?
It's
Palmieri's
well
got more left in the tank. Hall, the whole thing is, I don't like how he's handled this since the offseason. It's been bullshit since the start. And I'm just happy with where the Islanders are. And I hope he just continues this like downward trend with Boston. He deserves it.
Yeah. I could totally see your point. I'm not 100% sure that it's like, oh, he handled this bad because he's selfish and wants all this money. Again, I'm not sure if he's just picking bad teams and he's trying to find a winner that he could stay with for the long haul. But the good news is that it's been reported that the Islanders were in on Taylor Hall. And at one point, the Islanders or Lamoriello could have given up the first round pick for Taylor Hall, but it was an option. He had it both on the table. Do I give up the first round pick for Taylor Hall, or do I give up the first round pick for Palmieri and Travis Zajac? Lamoriello went with the latter. Thus, we have Palmieri and Zajac, and I think that was the right move. Ultimately,
absolutely. On a few levels, I don't see, especially with where Palmieri ended up. Think about Hall in the lineup and then Komarov still being that first line. I would be banging my head against the wall still from last week. I don't think I would have. I don't know that,
because I'll tell you what, if it wasn't Hall going to Boston, it would have been Palmieri, and that would have been trouble because Palmieri, like we both agree, he's better than Taylor Hall. Maybe right now at this moment. We'll see how Hall does in Boston, but I really think that Palmieri would have went to Boston and started lighting it up there. That's a crazy good power play when you think about it. Palmieri, Bergeron, Pastrnak, Marchand, and McAvoy. Forget it. It's still good with Taylor Hall.
It's still good with Taylor Hall,
but I think Palmieri is better in that situation.
Hall has just not been very good, and I mean, I don't want to sit here and be like he's selfish and this and that, but it's hard to argue. He tried to get more money and go to a good team and win instead of just I'll get mine, and it just it seems a little. Now look, hockey players, in terms of professional sports, are fairly underpaid, but so instead of $8 million, he got 5 from Boston and won a cup. Well, I mean, he's having his cake and eating it too, but he's having a horseshit season.
Yeah.
And now he's got to make up for it. Like, he needs to have an incredible run here and score in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Cannot be just a regular season hero, get him to second place or third place in the division and call it a day.
Yeah, he's never going to sign that big ticket. He's got to perform.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this is going to be a storyline for the rest of his career.
And it's another year into his career. So now he's even more, there's even less likely to sign a longer deal, right? That was a question last year.
Yeah.
Right? It was like, he's 29, 30 years old. He's not ancient, but you can't sign him to a 5-year deal.
Right.
And now he's even a year older than that. And he's playing like shit.
Yeah.
I don't see it. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. If he was having an incredible year and had 20 goals on this team, yeah, okay. I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
You maybe take that risk, but I like the by committee more than the sum of our parts. I mean, now those parts are actually pretty good too. So
nice and shiny, brand new.
Well, it's brand new. It's like a Subaru or a Honda, right? Or
they're
Toyota.
So reliable. They'll work forever.
It's a Tacoma. You're gonna go. It's your million-mile Tacoma, right? It's just reliable. It's gonna get it done without fail, right? I don't want a haul where it's like a Jeep, right? It could be reliable, but who knows? This could be the one that's not. Like
it's known to have some recalls.
I want the Tacoma, right? Even like even the Subaru thing, it's they're really reliable. They're good cars. They're not super flashy. That's the Islanders.
That's true.
And if one car guy tweets at us and says
my Subaru is the best thing that's ever happened.
Well, no, the opposite, right? Because there's some car guy. Stinks. One of you is a car guy and is going to sit here and tweet at us, well, the Subaru head gasket problem, blah, blah, blah. And you know what? You're probably right. But it's still reliable for the most part and whatever. But as I say, the Tacoma or something like that, where, they're super reliable. But that's the Islanders, right? It's not going to be flashy. It's not super expensive. It's every part is there for a reason.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to get them through. It's what got them through last year. And they were with Palmieri and Zajac, they're just a good team.
Very deep. Very deep. And like I said,
I like how Dobson's recovered from his absence.
Looks very good.
Green is starting to fade a little bit, but you got a Coburn there, you got a Hickey. You can figure it out if you really need to.
Yes.
I don't know that you want to, you kind of have to hope that if either Dobson or Green go out, that you can just switch in one of them, either Hickey, Coburn, something, and it just works. But I think you just hope it doesn't happen and they can figure it out. I'd like to see Green get some rest, frankly, by the end of the season. Once they secure a spot, if not an exact position where they can't be any lower than where they are or something, I'd really like to see Green get a couple nights off. I know he's not going to want it. Similarly to, and someone argued with me about this too. It's friggin' nuts. I was like, I think that they give Varlamov like a whole week off, where they give Sorokin that second Rangers game, and
somebody
blah,
got
blah, blah.
upset at the fact that you said that.
And I was like, no, I really think they give him Friday to Thursday. I really think they give him almost a week off of not playing. And yeah, that's exactly what happened, because that's what the team's been doing. They need Varlamov for the run. They need Green for the run. I think he gets some rest at some point, or I hope he at least. I hope he gets some rest. Again, bad at thinking ahead. Not been good at speculating lately. So yeah, I think Green gets a rest, and maybe Coburn fills that, and it's good. Get him some ice time so he's not just inserted after not playing for very long, and because he hasn't played in almost a week anyway.
Yeah, it's been a little bit. Quick side note, I ran a poll today on Twitter, and then we'll continue talking about the rest of the East Division that made moves today. But I wrote at 3:00, and the deadline has passed. I said Lamoureux did well for the Islanders. Agree or disagree? 97.1% agreed with that statement out of 510 votes. 2.9% did not agree with my statement. So I don't know who that 2.9% is, but if you want to, tweet at me and we can have a conversation about what you think went wrong, sure, we could have that conversation. But 510 votes, 97.1% of those people did not agree with you that they did not do well at the deadline. I think they did. I don't know
what makes it a good, like, again, if it's like, well, they could have got rid of Ladd. Look, no,
you can only
that's not happening.
Much.
Well, they didn't need to. Yeah, I mean,
I'm saying you can only do so much.
Right, you can only do so much. It's not even about. I've kind of like got on your case about this a little bit, but you're not as bad as some of the rest of them. I think there's like this mistake or this thing out there where why isn't Lou picking up the phone? What's up?
You need two to tango.
It's not even two to tango. It's like the right time. What are other deals? You're waiting on calls back. It's not literally like NHL 2K or whatever those games were, where it's like the Blackberries, like you just expect Lou to have 30 of them because he's been around forever and he wants to, like, this is not how it works. It takes time. Things need to materialize. Other teams are trying to make two moves so that they can make the move with you. And if one of them falls through, they can't do that.
Right.
And this and that. There's a lot that goes into it. And like I said, in the emergency pod that we did and in other episodes right before the trade deadline, I think these deals were kind of like not in place, but like at least on the table before Lee. Even if it was just in Lou's pocket or on his desk or whatever. I think he was looking at these anyway. Like this was going to happen. Maybe not Zajac, but this was going to happen anyway. So to sit there and be like, well, Lou, what are you doing? I know you're just like freaking out. It's not a good look. Like you just, and that's probably some of that 2% that don't think you did a good job. Like what's going to bring you from, like a C+ to an A? Like what's the difference there? Is it also acquiring Hall? How? You were going to get, you were going to,
so much room.
You were going to send what to Buffalo and have them retain salary? Like and then go, whoa, they didn't work. They needed a depth D too. Well, where's the room? They can only retain 50%.
Right.
They don't have the room for it. So I don't expect.
Put it to you this way. Before they got Coburn, let's say they found a way to make the Hall thing work. They weren't sending a Beauvillier and a pick over for Hall. It would have been something more like maybe Bellows and a pick for Hall. Now, you have Zajac, you have Palmieri, you have Taylor Hall. Who's going to sit in the lineup for Taylor Hall to play? It's going to be Wahlstrom. Is that what you want? Because we all know
it may be Zajac, but yeah, or
that's the thing though.
Or
my follow up to that was going to be: we all know that Trotz likes to go with the veterans. He likes to go with the experience, and I don't know that it would be that Zajac sits over Wahlstrom. It's honestly, it's not. You can't predict it.
I'd rather get look, they've been really smart about how they as in Trotz and the coaching staff. I think they've been really wow. Anyway, they're really good about getting the lines out against certain other lines and the rotation, and they're protecting Wallstrom a little bit. They're putting him in a space to succeed. You want him to get that experience. I want him to go into next season with the confidence that he has a spot on this roster.
Yeah.
I want him to have that playoff experience at such a young age so they can continue to build around guys. I want him to be part of the core after the season, like a solidified part of this.
And he will be.
These guys, and he will be, but he needs to be in the lineup. I'd rather kind of see him make some mistakes here and there. I know Trotz doesn't like that, but he's given him some latitude.
Yeah, he played
more than a lot of other players, but he scores goals and he makes up for it.
Yeah, he played really well last night. He took one stupid penalty, but aside from that, he played really well. I think the spot's his from now on. I think we're safe from first line Leo for a little bit, and if not a little bit, the rest of the season we'll see how it plays out. But let's talk about the one team that's been the Islanders' kryptonite this season, the Pittsburgh Penguins. They make a move themselves. They get Jeff Carter from the Los Angeles Kings for a draft pick, and I don't know. Am I worried about that? Not really. He has a hard time staying healthy, and like I said to you before we actually hit record, the thank you by the Kings via their Twitter was thanking him for his services in the playoffs and helping them win championships.
That was a long time ago.
In the early 2010s. So it's like, what has he done recently?
I mean, he scored 17 goals last season. That's not nothing.
All right.
So he can still find the net, which is good. I wonder what it does. Is that the equivalent of, just a third line, a middle six pickup for them so they can boost somebody else up a little bit?
Probably.
I think Malkin is still out. So they need something in the meantime. I think Zucker of late has been good. Gensel can turn on. Sidney Crosby. End of sentence.
Gensel has one less goal than Alexander Ovechkin.
Yeah.
He's a very good player.
So they have they have a bunch of guys. I think we mentioned this a couple of weeks ago in the episode 50s range, that they just have guys that come up and play well with the Penguins. So adding the veteran presence, you think of this as like maybe it's maybe a little bit more serviceable than Coburn, where he's actually going to see the ice. But he's won Stanley Cups. He's played in the East before. I don't think the Penguins are. Didn't he play in Philly? Am I making that up?
Oh, in Philly. Yeah, Philly too.
That was kind of a long time ago. So I think of him as a Flyer. That's over 10 years ago. But he played with Columbus as well. He scored 30 goals before. It was a long time ago. He's got 8 this season. It's not nothing.
Yeah.
With the team that LA has, that's not nothing. But like I was saying, the Penguins just seem to have guys that come up and they're hungry and they want to play, and their bottom 6 is just grind them out, power forward, blah blah blah. So you add a veteran presence in Carter and Jeff Carter, and I don't know. I think LA retained half on him, so for a little more than 2.5 for this season and next. I don't know. You bury him for 2.5. Not a big deal.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about it as far as he's concerned. I'm just a little worried. Does that make their first and second lines better? And when Malcolm comes back, it's like free depth. So that might be a little bit of an issue. I know you're not playing them now, but 2 and 3 play each other.
We'll see how
that
it
first
fares out
round. He can make a difference in a 7-game series.
Yeah,
that's sure. If I'm not worried about it, if they're playing the Penguins a couple more times in the regular season, but that's not the next time they're playing them.
Yeah,
they're playing them in the playoffs. So you kind of, having said that,
possibly
right, you kind of want the Islanders to try to win the division,
right?
And play Boston. And look, none of those teams you want to play in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's true too.
Not in the first round, not in the first 2 rounds, just to make it out to the Eastern Conference Final again.
Yeah.
However, this Thursday, is it Thursday and Friday?
What,
Or
for the
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for the Boston back?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I didn't know what you were asking.
The Boston back to back. If they can close this series out against Boston, I feel good about them playing them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
If they don't, I'm not comfortable with any of these teams. I know they can beat them, anyone, but
listen,
I'm less secure that they can make it out. Like the first round's gonna be real tough against any of them, just because now Hall's there. They're getting guys back, even if they don't, especially if they don't have the goaltending. Yikes, that's gonna be a tough go. But
I think that no matter who they play in the postseason, it's every team once they're in wipes the slate clean. If we sweep Boston 8-0, that doesn't make me any less worried about how that playoff series is going to go.
I am, because I am only if they lose these next 2 games without Tuukka Rask, because then they're gonna get them back, and then there's my problem. Now you have Taylor Hall,
and that's a fair
Rask
point.
back. Ooh, baby, that's gonna be a tough series. So
that's a fair point.
I want to see how they fare with Taylor Hall in the lineup with 2 kind of, I don't want to say no-name goalies. You're in the NHL. You deserve to be there.
True.
I'm at home. So 2 not tested NHL goalies.
There you go.
In the in between the pipes, we'll see. I still think the Islanders are okay.
I do too.
They've added, easily the best defensive core I think in the division, best tandem. I think Sorokin can ride to the bench after a certain point. But
I don't know, man. 8-0 in his last 8, undefeated at the Coliseum.
Yeah, it's not playoff tested. You want Varley in there, who went on that run last year, even back to backs or things like that. I mean, like Grice did come in last year and play some games, and
that's what I'm saying.
The series, I think game 5 or 6 was really game 5. Game 5 sounds right. That was really important for him to come in and do that. But yeah, we'll see. I'm sure he'll get like a game or 2 or something, depending on how the playoffs schedule rolls out. But yeah, the week ahead.
Boston twice, like you said, on that Thursday and Friday. Then they move on to play Philly, and then the Rangers once again before our next episode.
I think the Rangers is next Tuesday.
I think it's
like the day of
the
episode, but I figured I'd throw it in there.
Yeah, no, we always talk about the games leading up to our next episode, and that will be when they play the Rangers. Boston looking to sweep the series. They have every opportunity to do so right now. They're at this moment much deeper than the Bruins are where they stand. Their defense, like you said, is much better. Their goaltending is much better, especially with Halak and Rask hurt. We'll see how Taylor Hall and not as important Curtis Lazar works out for Boston. But like I said in the beginning of the season, Boston is not the big bad Bruins team they used to be. I'm not as scared of them as I used to be, and I don't see any reason why they can't win out this series for the rest of the season. Going to Philly, I think that's a statement game. Reason I say that is because they never play them well.
They don't. It's always like overtime, or a win in overtime or a loss in overtime. Like it's
a shootout. Yeah,
it's something. There's always extra time.
It's a statement game. They need to bury a team that they should be burying. They can't allow Jacob Voracek and Claude Giroux to skate circles around them. They're a better team than the Flyers, and they need to play like it. Now, the Flyers didn't sell off a bunch of pieces and go into sell mode. They only got rid of a couple of depth pieces, but they kept the core together. They could still try to squeak their way into the playoffs. That's a statement game that they have to win, and they have to win. Like they have to just
play a full 60 minutes. I want to see them play a full 60 minutes against Philadelphia.
And I'm not talking they have to win 6-0. They have to win a solid 3-0 game.
4-1.
A solid 4-1 game, right?
Win the game and win it and have people say the write-up after the game should be the score did not indicate how much the Islanders just controlled the win.
There you go.
That's what we want to see from that. I think they can go 3-1 this week. I think they can figure it out.
And I hope that the 3-1 doesn't come. That one is not Philly. I want that Philly game so bad. If they split Boston, I'm happy.
I'm happy if they split Boston, especially because you just expect Hall to break out.
Right. So if they split Boston, I'm happy. They need to win that Philly game. And the Ranger game is, in my opinion,
man.
They're equal. They play a fast game. They're faster. I'm not afraid to admit it. They're faster than the Islanders. The Islanders play a slower game. They need to figure out a way to weather that storm because they're go, 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 and the Islanders are trying to compress.
Blackwell? Who the hell is
Colin Blackwell. He came. I think his first season might have been last season, and he's just progressively gotten better.
He's a thorn, man.
Yeah, they have these guys who they just, it's not just Zibanejad and Panarin. They, Fox came out, broke out this season.
Good on him too.
Possibly, he's a possible Norris candidate this year.
He's the best, one of the best defenders the Rangers have had since Leach.
Right. So
grew up. Talk about a guy playing the system. I like that he, I want to play for the Rangers. I'm going to figure that out. And
I think it's really important too that I think that the Rangers go back to Georgiev because his numbers against the Islanders are just astronomical. If he's in net, it's another statement game for them where they need to say, yeah, we're that juggernaut.
Yeah, they need to. I think just seeing again, they can go 2-2 if they're playing complete games. It doesn't mean they always win. I think what we just see, like the second periods, they just need to play them even, right?
Right.
Hey, you give up some shots, whatever. A little letdown period. Whatever.
I just want to see solid 60-minute games here. I understand that the new guys are getting acclimated. That's all well and good. It's been a couple days. They have 3 days off, a couple practices in between. They need to get acclimated. They need to start dominating those games that they should be dominating. This is a week where they, like you said, 3-1. Absolutely. They should be doing that. So,
yeah. And so just the Boston, I think they play them in May as well. So this is only games 5 and 6.
Yeah. Just 5 and 6.
So yeah, looking at the schedule, the next week is where it gets interesting, starting with that Ranger game for sure, which we'll talk about right after the game next Tuesday on the next episode. But then they play Washington 3 times in a row.
Yeah,
and then they don't have more than, if I'm reading this right, more than 2 days off the rest of the season. So this is their last break with any kind. Oh, they have 2 days in between the first 2 Washington games, 2 days off, and then Washington again. So that's their next break, and it's in a couple weeks. So they need to,
this week could be a total turning point.
It's going to be huge that the next, when this episode airs Wednesday or Tuesday and Wednesday, that they get the guys acclimated fully. Play this. You kind of see Zajac hesitating a little bit. You see Palmieri, hesitate a little bit. Yeah, you just kind of want to see them play the game. I know it's difficult to just switch, from a Devils team that was a little more run and gun, a little loosey-goosey, to like a very structured, different kind of team in the Islanders. So,
but Palmieri looks like he's getting acclimated.
He's getting there.
We think he looks very good. I think Zajac will get there. I mean, I don't know if he's used to first line minutes. He played with Barzal the other night, so
he's not going to keep up. There's very few guys you're going to get play with Barzal that keep up.
Yeah, we'll see if that sticks. I don't know that that's the guy you want up there.
He's a little finicky with the puck. He seemed like he was trying to rush some things. I don't know if he's just trying to keep up with the speed or make a few bad passes and they just stick in your brain. That might also be the case. I won't be too hard on him. A couple new, not that far of a move, but a move, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we'll see. I'm happy with the trades. It really makes this lineup much better. The rest of the division, I think they kept up with the Islanders for a change. The Islanders were the Joneses.
I think that's a very good statement.
If for the first time in, when's the last time you can say that,
the Islanders were the benchmark?
The Islanders were the benchmark, and they did it early enough, and I think that was good. So they have that benefit as well. But I think the rest of the division was like, oh boy, yeah, we got to make a move. We got to add something here. Now they probably were all making these calls in the last couple of weeks, but the Islanders had the luxury of just doing it earlier, and the rest of the division said, okay, now we definitely have to make a move, and maybe that's why a team like Washington overpays.
Yeah,
they're like, yeah, we got to make sure that we get our guy.
Right.
It helps that he had a little bit of term as far as Detroit's concerned, but yeah, I think these other teams, like, I don't think Pittsburgh doesn't make that move for Carter. They're probably close to being the same.
Yeah,
I don't
agree.
know, but they go, you know what, we're going to get Malcolm back, but we're going to wind up playing the Islanders in the first round. If they're 2-3, we're 2-3, whatever. We need somebody. So yeah. I think for the first time in, if not ever, the rest of the division was keeping up with the Islanders.
I think that's a great way to put it. I think that's a great way to end it. That about wraps it up for us this week, everybody. We didn't do too much of a deep dive into the Palmieri and Zajac trades, but just because we actually had an initial live reaction post go up on our YouTube page. So if you missed it, it's there. You can go over to our YouTube page, Nassaumen Hockey, and check out our initial reaction, thoughts, and how we liked or disliked the trade, which, spoiler alert, we loved it.
We are going to try to do that a little bit more because you can do live comments right in the show. It went really well. We had
quite a bit fun with it.
Yeah, we had quite a bit of views, and I think that was really good. I haven't checked it in a while. Who cares? But yeah, it was cool to be able to, like, we brought the tweets up or the comments up on the screen.
Really cool.
Some good engagement. We really like that.
Yeah. So if you're looking for more of a deeper dive into the Palmieri and Zajac trades, go check out that YouTube video, Nassaumen Hockey on YouTube, labeled Emergency Podcast, Palmieri and Zajac trade. You'll find it there. It was the day of the Palmieri and Zajac trade. So if you're searching by date, look for it then. Thank you to the Hockey Podcast Network, the hockey writers, and of course, all of you, our listeners. Please rate, review, and subscribe everywhere you listen to or watch the show. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Nassaumen Hockey and find our work at The Hockey Writers. And until next time, everybody, let's go Islanders.